Hello everybody, and welcome to Korn Ferry Live, a place where our guests are sharper than your inbox on a Monday morning, and the insights are actually built to stick. In each and every session, we bring together some of the boldest brains on a single topic, not to TED talk them to death, but to crack it open, pick it apart, and serve up what really matters. Why? So you can walk away with real perspective, the kind that helps you lead better, think clearer, and make the tough calls with confidence, and maybe even with a smile. Today, we're diving into something we all need more of, resilience. In a world of constant change, how do we stay focused, beat burnout, and keep adapting without running on empty? We'll be unpacking real practical ways to manage change fatigue, maintain momentum, build that all-important growth mindset, and not just for ourselves, but in the people we lead. And just a reminder, this isn't a one-way conversation. We want you in it too. So drop your questions and thoughts into the chat. I'll be bringing them straight to our guests throughout the session. And to get us all warmed up, here's a quickie for you to put in the chat. As we all know, there's no shortage right now of change coming from every angle. For many of us, it's totally exhausting. So if we take AI as a topic, for example, I want to know, do you feel like adapting to AI is adding to your overall sense of change fatigue? A simple yes or no in the chat, just pop it in. I really want you to do it. Get warmed up. Y or N, yes or no, come on, don't be shy, no one knows what you're saying. There's no wrong or right, get involved. You know you want to. Right, let's get started. As always, I'm your host, Darren Bolton, and today I'm joined by Anya Weaver, Principal Consultant here at Korn Ferry, and Amelia Haynes, Research Manager and Cognitive Scientist. Welcome to the show. Lovely to have some new faces and fresh blood. Welcome, welcome. So before we start, I have something new for our viewers. So this could go wrong. It's one of those technology things again. We have a live poll we want to get you all involved with. It should be in the chat and hopefully on screen now. Oh, goodness me, it worked. So as you can see, the question, when change knocks on your door, how do you usually respond? Some fun questions there. You know, which end of the spectrum are you? Have a look. Click on it, get involved, and we'll have a look at those facts and figures later in this show. So just get involved, everyone, please. And on the topic of fun, I have a question for our lovely guest as well. So I kind of warned you, but I didn't tell you what it's going to be. So as you're newbies to our show, I thought this might settle you in before we get onto the tougher questions. So are you ready?
I think so.
Do it.
Nothing too heavy, and I don't want any judging from our audience, but I want you to pick one iconic song that plays every time you bounce back from something challenging, your soundtrack to being resilient. Who wants to go first? Pressure there, pressure.
Ooh, that's a really good one. Okay, the first thing that pops into my mind is I'm Gonna Be by the Proclaimers. Because that guy who's walking 500 miles. Oh my goodness, it's such a good one. And that's a resilient guy right there. So that one definitely gets me amped up, keeps me going. That's my resilience anthem.
Choice. Tough one to beat, Anya. Tough one to beat.
That is a tough one to beat, but the song that popped in my mind was "Don't Worry, Be Happy."
Oh yeah, that is a good one. That is a good one. That is a good one. I think you both passed very well there. Well done. I like that. Very good. Very good. Oh, thanks. It's nice you asked. Mine. Well, I've had a little bit longer to think about it, haven't I? So I went for the Killers, Mr. Brightside. I probably wouldn't have gone for the 500 Miles Proclaimers because I thought Americans wouldn't know that as much, but it was in Shrek, I think, wasn't it? So yeah, I'd go for Mr. Brightside. That's an absolute banger. Always makes you feel good, sort of thing, and everyone gets excited by it. So thank you very much. Well done for playing along. Right, everyone's warmed up. So let's get ready to rumble. Let's get those questions going. So Amelia, can you kick us off first by explaining what resilience really looks like in the workplace? And if you've got any real world examples, that'd be even better.
Yeah, sure. So as you heard, I'm a cognitive scientist by training. So I think about resilience first in terms of what it means from that perspective. And In the field of cognitive science, we really think about resilience in terms of our capacity to cope with environmental stress and maintain stability during periods of challenge. And environmental stress can come from a lot of different things. And I think one of the cool things about where we are in the world of work today is that we're starting to really understand and acknowledge more of what those things are. I think for a long time, we weren't really at a place where we were having that conversation at work about work. And it's kind of like we operated under the assumption that everything was something we could just check at the door when we came to the office. And at some point that started to change a little bit. So I think we have a better sense of the fact that, you know, that environmental stress, those periods of challenge become part of who we are. And it creates this physiological biopsychosocial experience of a departure from a baseline homeostasis. And resilience is our capacity to leave that baseline and come back to it. And that ability, in lack thereof, has huge impacts on our mental health, our physical health, our cognitive resources, our quality of work. And so I think recognizing it, being able to talk about it, understanding what it looks like, how it shows up, and what we can do about it is a super, super important thing to be talking about today. And I'm really excited to keep digging into that over the rest of the conversation.
Great. Anya, anything you'd like to add?
Sure. And thank you so much for having me, Darren. You know, as an executive coach, I approach resilience from an ideal state. So I loved what Amelia shared. I'm thinking about it from this place of ideally, how do I want to respond and show up in the face of change and challenge? And what would honor my values and represent my brand? And I think resilience in a workplace is multifaceted. It's what Amelia shared. It's the ability and capacity to adapt. And, you know, it's all about our propensity to recover as well. You know, I love your icebreaker question. But I look at it and I think about, okay, where was my weighted blanket as one of the answers? And it's okay to take that moment of catharsis, but let it just be a moment, because being able to recover is also part of resilience. You know, it's the propensity to bounce back and to grow and to learn in the face of stress, change, challenge, setbacks, you know, when things don't go as planned, because ideal state is not about surviving a change or a challenge, but being able to thrive, you know, even become a change champion that helps others navigate change. And resilient employees accept that change is constant. They anticipate it and plan for it, much like tending a lawn to prevent weeds in the spring.
Yeah. I love the idea of being a change champion. That's a nice thought. We got some response to my question about AI, which is brilliant, because sometimes our audience are a little bit slow to warm up, but they're all getting involved lovely. And interestingly enough, I see from the box below is that the answers are really split between yes and no. So I guess there's a lot of people out there still confused, not sure how to embrace or get involved with AI. And there are others that are going, hey, this is a great opportunity. But it's interesting to see they're both equally split there. So thank you for that. And don't forget the poll. And also questions for our guests. Make sure you get some questions in. Let's put them to the test. Okay, that's a great start. So how do you actually identify the signs of change fatigue and its effects? Are there any techniques our viewers could use to mitigate it? Anya, do you want to take that one?
Yes. How do I identify it? Signs of fatigue. You know, I think a big sign of fatigue is just overall lack of motivation. You know, even for things that you enjoy, you're just drained. Dread, right? Lack of physical and mental energy, burnout. I even think about when I've felt fatigue personally, I've been easily irritated, if I'm being transparent. I don't know, maybe those that are in the audience can share in chat if they can relate. But those are the signs of change fatigue for me.
That's a good one. Amelia, what's your thoughts on
Yeah,
that?
I mean, completely echo everything that Anya just shared. In the Korn Ferry Institute, we've done a lot of looking at burnout, looking at what it looks like in the workplace, what you can do about it. And we really think about it in terms of kind of 3 specific things that happen that kind of demonstrate change fatigue. So the first is depersonalization. Or cynicism. So you actually withdraw emotionally, socially from your colleagues, from your family, from the things that you used to enjoy. So that depersonalization is one kind of key indicator. A second key indicator, and Anya, you mentioned this too, that irritability, we call it emotional exhaustion. So just in general, you have this kind of emotional fatigue that makes your typical emotional operating system just really off balance. And that can look like a lot of different things. You can be easy to anger, you can be easy to sadden, you can be easy to stress. And then the last piece is what we call inefficacy. So kind of feeling like you don't have the stuff to do what you normally feel capable of doing. And that's a really challenging one. You know, it's important to a lot of people to feel good at their jobs. It's important to feel capable, and burnout can make you feel not capable. It can make you feel like you don't have it in you to do the things that you either normally do or need to do. So those are really the 3 things that we would, kind of advise people to look out for if they're trying to identify change fatigue, either in themselves or their coworkers or their direct reports. Those are pretty significant indicators. Fortunately, the research also tells us that there are things that can be done about those 3 individual kind of symptoms, if you will. Strengthen someone's ability to get clarity on their own thought process. We call this metacognition, but basically it's just knowing your mind, thinking about thinking, and having more awareness and clarity over your thought processes and kind of how you tend to go through problem solving or kind of task, like approaching challenges. Another one is get really good at emotion regulation. There's a lot of different ways of going about this, but think about like cognitive reframing and reappraisal. Think about getting really clear on how you describe your feelings. That emotion literacy can have a huge impact on being able to better regulate your emotions. If you know what it is and you can name it, you can deal with it more effectively. And then really try to engage in empathy, but also recognize that there is such thing as empathy fatigue. You have to be able to fill your own cup before you pour into somebody else's. So be empathetic with yourself and find ways to be empathetic with others and really recognize the relationship between those 2.
That's great. You've talked a little bit about coping tools to build resilience, but what about the power of radically human communication? Anya, can you how can we encourage more authentic communication in what can often be quite hierarchical organizations?
Yes, that's a really good question. When I think of radically human communication, I think about how important it is to model transparency and vulnerability at the top. Leaders who are transparent about their challenges, their mistakes even, and even ask for feedback, set the tone for that radically human and authentic communication. That's the first one. I would also say just flatten the communication channels, encourage direct communication across levels, and perform skip level meetings, maybe anonymous feedback. There are different forums that will allow for that open line of communication. Another way is recognize and reward honesty, celebrate it even. That will encourage other people to speak up and not fear retaliation. Lastly, and I believe Amelia spoke about this earlier too, is just purpose is so important. Clarifying what the purpose and the goals are and the values are. When people understand the why behind what they're doing, they're more likely to communicate with integrity.
Great. Amelia?
Yeah, I mean, I have a ton of thoughts about what Anya just said. Picking up really quickly on this purpose piece. Purpose is huge. It can be super motivating. It can really connect people to the why of what they're doing. But it's also super important that your purpose be authentic. People have kind of an innately good BS detector, as we say. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. But we kind of have this sense of when people are being inauthentic. And what our research shows is that an inauthentic purpose is actually more damaging than not leading with purpose at all. So you have to be able to talk the talk and walk the walk. So just wanted to call that out really quickly. And then the other thing that Anya said that I really resonate with is kind of creating this culture of transparency and openness and candor. Being really open and honest about mistakes, I think, is one great example of creating a radically human culture. And it's actually incredibly cool. We find that when people make a mistake and then reflect on it and learn from it, their brain is way more active than if they just get something right the first time. Okay. So in that kind of preparedness for change and that readiness for change, mistakes aren't actually a bad thing. It's so developmental to make a mistake and learn from it. But you both have to have a culture where you can make the mistake and have a culture where it's okay to talk about it, to reflect on it, to learn from it together. Kind of this fail fast, learn fast approach is critical for change readiness.
Sure. I believe we have a question that's going to pop up on the screen any second. Here we go, from Brian. So the question is, have you found effective strategies to encourage employees to manage up and advocate for themselves during times of change? Who wants to have a go at that one?
I'll take a go at it. I think having strategies is important. As I mentioned earlier, this is a great question, Brian. As I mentioned earlier, resilient employees plan. So that's the strategic part. I think the first thing I would recommend is stay grounded in your values. When life feels so out of control, anchoring in your core values can restore some stability for you. And reminding yourself of these values as often as needed. Another one that I strongly encourage is purposeful pauses. A purposeful pause can be so powerful. Amelia, you touched on it, but change triggers a lot, and it can feel like so much stimuli is coming at you at one time, and you can react impulsively, and that pulls you away from your core values. And our brains are hardwired to give our emotions the upper hand, but a purposeful pause helps prevent what we call a amygdala hijack. And I'm sure, Amelia, you can explain more about that. But an amygdala hijack is an intense emotional reaction that's immediate, that can manifest in different ways. I think about fight, which is confrontational; flight, where you avoid or escape; fawn, which is like people pleasing; or freeze, where you just completely shut down. And I usually know when I have had this happen to me because I'm embarrassed afterward. So consider, how are you showing up right now when you respond to change or challenge? I invite you to share in chat. Are you showing up in one of these categories, or your ideal state that's congruent with your brand and your values so you can thrive in the state of change? I can go on, but I want to welcome, Amelia in. I'm sure you have a lot to share as well. We also have a framework that I can maybe talk about later, but.
Brilliant. That sounds great.
I just add really quickly, purpose is activated by autonomy. Purpose is a great thing to center on, but people have to have the room and the freedom to make choices that align themselves with that driving purpose. So you ask, how do you encourage employees to manage up and advocate for themselves? I would really tie it back to, we have a driving mission, we have a driving purpose, and we have core values, and giving the autonomy to act in accordance with those will enable them to be self-advocates and will enable them to manage up. But you have to give them the freedom to do it.
Yeah. Great, that's great. Thank you, Brian. And come on, everyone else, be a bit more Brian, please. Let's get those questions in. Don't be shy. Okay, so when everything's kind of shouting for your time, how do you actually figure out what to focus on first? Any go-to tools or tricks that help you kind of cut through that noise? Who wants to take that one?
Hmm.
I'm happy to jump in really quickly, and just, also to pick up on something that Anya said just a moment ago while I still can. Mindfulness and awareness are critical. You have to know what you're dealing with before you can start making intentional and deliberate choices about what to tackle first, or what takes priority, or what's most important. And Anya talked about emotional hijacking, which I think is really interesting. But mindfulness and awareness and the practices around creating awareness actually do something really interesting in the brain, which is create stronger connectivity between the parts of our brain that are principally emotional, like the amygdala, and our prefrontal cortex, which we call the executive network. And the stronger the relationship between those regions are, the better we are able to fend off things like amygdala or emotional hijacking. So these practices that can help you think about prioritizing tasks, that can help you, develop these practical tools for change fatigue, are also the kinds of things that can help you prevent it in the future, by really kind of starting at the ground level and creating the structures that can help prevent those things in the future. So it's kind of like in creating a circular process that is super beneficial to kind of mitigating and managing change fatigue. So I just think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Anya, anything from your perspective?
I love that, Amelia. I'll probably come from a place, more of a tactical place then, to add on to that. I think about tactically breaking down projects into smaller milestones, making steady progress on multiple priorities simultaneously. And when I'm approaching a lot, I think about what's urgent and what's important first. I also consider, what can I delegate? I coach a lot, and I find that many leaders, especially high achieving leaders, have opportunities to develop their team members by delegating and getting some of those tasks off of their plate. And then what can be removed? Right? We don't consider what can be removed. And I'll throw AI into the conversation again, because there are a lot of efficiencies that we can gain with AI, with the use of AI.
That's great. Right, I think we've given everyone enough time on the poll, so maybe if there's any chance we can see the results. So it's exciting. Oh, okay, that's interesting. So B, with cautious optimism and maybe snacks. Maybe the snacks was the thing that swung it. That seems to be kind of a clear winner. But some are with a smile to you, so that's great to see. But equally balancing it out, depends on what kind of challenge. Any thoughts on our results there? Is that kind of something you would have expected?
Well, I didn't see an option to go find my dog and pet my dog, so that may be partly why the results are showing up the way they are. But I think that encourages me. I think the combination of cautious optimism is kind of inspiring, but also people being realistic about, well, honestly, it depends, and I think that's smart.
Yeah, great. Yeah. Thank you very much for getting involved, everyone. That's great to see. I'm looking at the clock and I can see we're nearly running out of time. So I think we're going to have to go on to our final question, which is, we do this with all of our guests. We like to leave our viewers with what we call our final thoughts. So ideally something really practical, something they can kind of go off and do right away. Who would like to kick off? You're both so polite. So I love it. Amelia, you go first.
Okay, well, the first thing that comes to mind is not necessarily a practical do, but it's an important remember. So if that's okay, I would advise.
I will accept it.
Only because my first answer was so good. But just remember that our brains are plastic. They grow all the time. They're producing new neurons. They're creating new synapses. They're pruning away old ones. we've seen evidence of this on spectacular and monumental scales, with changes that are profound. And it's just a really nice reminder that we were made to change. We were built to change. And it's a good thing and it's a natural thing, but it's nice, you know, in the face of things that are hard, in the face of change that feels constant, for me to remember I was built for this.
Mm-hmm.
Great. And Anya?
Yes. So I love that growth mindset. So that was one of mine as well. And not only maintaining that growth mindset that says, I can do this. And if I don't feel like I can do this now, I can do this eventually. I can learn to do it, right? It's a powerful mindset shift. The other one is to practice gratitude. You know, gratitude is so underrated and it's a powerful emotion. So being able to celebrate efforts and progress, regardless of your results, is so powerful. And then I'll reiterate the importance of pausing. You know, it makes me think of a quote by a philosopher, and I believe he's a mathematician too, Pascal. And I am paraphrasing here, but he says the many of humanity's problems stem from the inability to be still. And it's in that stillness that you can get clarity about your purpose and move forward in the face of change and challenge. And that's what I would say is my final, you know, way forward. Think about how can you gain clarity to move forward, not just go fast, because it's really busy when change occurs and there are a lot of decisions to make, but go fast in the right direction. What we need is that's velocity.
Sure.
Right.
Wise words to finish on, but that is it, I'm afraid. Amelia, Anya, thank you both. You give us a lot to think about. And I think 2 unbelievably iconic songs that I just dropped on you there. I can't believe you can't have 2 such good ones. I thought they're going to panic, but brilliant. So it's been a pleasure having you both. Hope to see you again soon. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And so you made it through a session on resilience, which is already a pretty resilient move in itself. Maybe you're dodging deadlines, navigating tech upheaval, or just trying to stay energized. Remember, resilience isn't about powering through, it's about bouncing back smarter, not just harder. I hope you're walking away with something you can actually use, not just file away, because in a world that never stops moving, resilience is what turns pressure into progress. Take care of yourselves. Till next time, goodbye.